Welcome to episode 127 of the Essential Wrestling Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm John DeConti, keeping the driver's seat warm for our buddy Karl, who's off doing grown-up things. And we're here to take you through the week that was and preview a big upcoming week of wrestling action, powered as always by the Eastern Observer. You can feel the power. Here with me, staying up late across the pond, is our expert on all things UK and soon to be all of Europe, Gary Mehaffy. Gary, how you doing tonight?
I am doing well, and I'm going to be in my best behavior tonight. Obviously, no mockery of anybody this week. I wouldn't do that. I'm too polite.
Who would even think to make such a suggestion?
No, I know.
Also with us is our resident NXT guru.
And number 4, John Smith.
John, how are you tonight, sir?
As you can see, I'm not wearing my Jets jersey this week. We've come back down to earth, back in fourth place, right where we belong, where our initials are carved.
Well, speaking of football, I know this is a wrestling show, but again, just like a couple weeks ago, I promise it'll come back around to wrestling. I have a couple of catchphrases in life that usually when I want to kick myself when I hear them come out of my own mouth. Like when I'm dealing with anyone on the telephone trying to place an order or do anything like that, I always wind up bitching and moaning, nobody takes pride in their job anymore. Nobody does their job anymore. And I want to slap myself when I hear myself say stuff like that because it sounds like get off my lawn. But one of my personal catchphrases that was once again given credit and a little boost this week was that everything is better when you add wrestling. John Smith, did you get a chance to peep this on Monday night?
I did not see that. No, that's awesome.
Your best friend gave a big hug to Stone Cold George Kittle and gave him a custom-made San Francisco Giants helmet-esque lucha mask.
Was that actually Penta or no?
Yeah, that was legitimately Penta, and they had. Take this silly thing down.
Oh wow, his name's there. I see. Okay.
Yeah. And even better than that, to give credit where credit's due, Joe Buck of all people announced him as Pentagon Jr., even with the graphic right up there saying that his name was something else, but he called him Pentagon Jr., which also gave me a chuckle.
So does that mean that Joe Buck is a wrestling fan? And he knew him as Pentagon Jr.?
Perhaps. That's what I'm led to believe.
Word.
Anywho, so that was really cool because, again, everything is better when you sprinkle in a little wrestling. All right, on tonight's show, we've got Raw setting the table for most of Survivor Series. And not to be outdone by FIFA, SmackDown has some of their very own World Cup action going on, and they'll handle the last little bit of business leading up to Survivor Series War Games. Impact delivered a very entertaining Overdrive special, but like we always like to bust on them, Impact going to Impact. They did a little bit of that right at the end of that show, I feel. And we'll talk about AEW's big Full Gear card and the dozens upon dozens of title belts that were on the line for that. We'll close the show with that. But NXT will start us off, as has been the case most of the time recently. There are two huge title matches from last week and another big one coming up tonight. Uh-oh. John bailed out on us.
Yeah, I think he's frozen there.
Yeah, he'll be back, hopefully. And of course, our picks are sponsored by, because I'm really good at doing this, ProWrestlingPick'em.com. Play against your friends, play against the universe. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, here are the Raw roll-ups, if I can find it. Here are the Raw roll-ups for last week. We had AEW with a 4 roll-up lead on Raw. We got Impact laying in the weeds, looking to make a run.
NXT UK still looking solid there. As I said before, been no roll ups since like August time. That's good booking.
I mean, it's just a solid show every time, Okay, so let's jump into things with NXT as I keep my eye out. Okay, wait, we got a private chat here. Okay, I'm just waiting on John to come back and join us. I did manage to take the names off, so we're not doing that for right now. Unfortunately, I don't have. How the hell do you put the natural ones back up? I forget how to do that. Oh, here we go. There we go. Because I don't think we've got a 1-1 with you and me, Gar.
This is all my secret plan to get rid of them. Just last week was step 1. This is step 2.
It's all coming together. Okay, so last week from the Performance Center, we had a big title match. We'll get back around to that. After the title match, we had Apollo Crews chatting with. Hold on just a second. I think I'm gonna have to take you out, sir. Bring you back in and you back in. All right.
Hey, I'm sorry about that. My computer's whacked out.
Mine did that about 5 minutes before I saw you guys, pre-show. So believe me, I feel your pain. All right, let's get the right stuff back up here. There we go. Okay, NXT starting last week. Let's go right to the main event because it was a big one. John Smith, you had Braun Breaker defending the NXT Championship against Von Wagner. Break it down for us, sir.
Yes, and while it was the main event, it did start off the show. It's I liked to see that because typically on a title match, you know how long it's going to go because you know when the show's ending. But the women got that treatment this show, and the men got to just go for it. And you know what? I mean, Von. I feel like he looks the part, but he doesn't play the part very well in that ring yet. And there's not much good to be said about this match. It was just two big guys going at it. It was average. There weren't any botches, but there wasn't anything like crazy to be said about it. At one point we got a nice spinning neck breaker from Von Wagner that looked pretty cool. But at the end of it, Von was holding up Von picked up Braun for what looked like he was going to do another spinning neck breaker type thing, and Braun just slipped off his back, bounced off the rope, spear, 1, 2, 3, and still your NXT World Heavyweight Champion, Braun Breaker. When's it going to end?
Yeah, so Braun, Wagner put him through it. So after the match, I think we went to commercial. We came back. We saw Braun kind of like take a knee backstage, like he was kind of exhausted, and he was staring at his belt. And his old buddy JD McDonough came up and said, basically, you're never going to be done with me, right? So you got a little bit of that there. Then later in the show, you got Apollo Crews coming up to Braun Breaker in the locker room and telling him he came back for one reason, and it's the NXT title. And now that, one challenge is done, the next challenge begins. Well, speaking of those two gentlemen, Apollo Crews and J.D. McDonough, they were going to fight about things because I guess both of them want a shot at that title, clearly. Gary, how did this one work out?
It was really, it's what you'd expect, a really good match from two really, really talented wrestlers. When they started off, obviously, there's a big sort of slightly Japanese at the start, a lot of chops at the start, and McDonough got knocked out of the ring and thrown into the announce table. You had JD given stomping on Apollo Crews, but he sent him to the outside and then did a moonsault onto him, and inside the ring you had JD doing a Spanish fly followed by a headbutt. And I always actually rewind JD McDonough's headbutts just to see how he does it, because they look really vicious to see where he slapped or if he slapped. I'm not sort of a geek to see how he does it. Was fantastic. But as we come right through the end and they're battling each other, JD hitting a sunset flip, hit Apollo Crews into the ropes, but Crews rolled out of the way as JD had gone to the top rope, and Apollo Crews ended up delivering what I'm not really sure how to describe it, like a pop-up uranagi, pop-up chokeslam, pop-up,
Right.
not really sure rock bottom what it was, but took him, and Apollo Crews wins it with the 1-2-3.
Yes, indeed. So Apollo Crews, and then Braun came out into the aisle to kind of lock eyes with Apollo. So obviously those two are on a collision course. We've got Deadline a couple weeks away. Yeah, that's probably going to be your match. But who knows? Maybe JD makes things interesting. We get another triple threat. We'll see how that works out. Then we had some, non-essential stuff going on backstage. But one bit that actually really made me laugh was we had our boy Big Body Javi. He was backstage with Mackenzie, and he said he's not waiting to get booked anymore. He's going to start calling people out, and he's starting with Axiom. And Mackenzie tells him that he's injured. So, all right, fine. Give me that Dragunov guy. Yeah, he's back in Germany rehabbing from another injury. All right, then just give me anyone from Gallus. The guys that are suspended until further notice. He gets completely frustrated and looks at her, and I don't know where he was going with this, but it probably gave me the hardest chuckle of the whole thing. It was like, you're part of the problem. You know that? He just walks away. Now, I don't know if this was just fortuitous timing, but I think right after that was another Dijakovic, whatever he's going to be called, vignette. His hard justice is on its way. And not too far from that was another Scripps vignette where he says he got in the building, blah, blah, blah. He's gonna be here this week, and who's gonna play my little game? So I'm hoping Javi gets fed to one of those guys as they're welcome to the Performance Center match, and it's an absolute squash because once again that will just make me chuckle. We had a nice little moment where Odyssey Jones was talking to Mehaffy and Blade, and they were busting Blade's chops about his ugly sweater vests. We found out that was a tribute to his dad, who liked to dress real snazzy, and I think the first thing he bought him was a nice sweater vest, so now he wears them in tribute to dad. But then we got to the actual main event in terms of placement. It was your women's NXT title match. It was Last Woman Standing. Gary, tell us all about it.
Yeah, and this is like we were talking about before we started. This is one of these matches where you go, how do you recap it? What do you leave out? What do you not leave out? It was brutal. They were going for a lot of chairs. There was a toolbox grab from under the ring at one point by Alba Fire. The crowd were into it, but it was almost a very WWE, obviously, crowd chanting for tables and stuff as well. You had Mandy Rose going for a bicycle kick, but Alba Fire holds up the chair and Mandy goes into it. They were outside. There's a lot of sort of stuff and reverses. It whips into the barricade where the referee's trying to count to 10, but they were both getting up. Alba Fire sort of returned favour to Mandy Rose, sending her over the barricade and into the ring steps, and they got up at 9 then. But as we come towards the end of it, there was a ladder set up next to the announce table, and you had Mandy Rose set on top of the announce desk with Alba Fire getting ready to just splash her or elbow her or do something. And as she climbed up the ladder, who should appear at the top of it but one of the NXT originals, Isla Dawn, who was there. She spit mist in her face like she was Tajiri and pushed Alba Fire off the ladder. Mandy moved. Alba goes into the announce desk. Referee counts. Mandy gets their feet, but Alba doesn't, and Mandy retains, and she appears to be our definite forever champion here.
I thought last week was finally going to be the moment because it was the second try for Alba. And yes, I think what it turned out being is that Sean or Paul or Triple H, whoever's booking NXT now, laughing in my face, and I keep voting against Mandy. And now not only is she continuing to retain, but I think you're right. I think she has now taken the title of Forever Champion because they just won't take the goddamn belt off her.
And I have to say, now, I noticed this at the Premium Live event and on this show. I think this sounds really silly, and not that I was focused on this. Obviously, can we just clarify this? But I think she needs slightly new ring gear because she spends half the time when she's on her back trying to make sure that she doesn't do a Janet Jackson.
Yeah.
And she's forever pulling at her top to make sure that nothing appears. So I'm going, if that's the case, I think you need slightly different ring gear just to make sure you can keep your modesty covered, so to speak.
You shut your mouth, Gary.
I know John's busy making gifts left, right, and center.
You ever wonder who makes all those nip slip gifts? It's this guy right here.
And we thank you for it. So yes, Mandy and the ladies from Toxic Attraction apparently will kick off the show tonight. Gee, I wonder what they'll have to say. Speaking of the women's division, last week we got the inevitable. I just beat up my tag team partner. Zoe Stark came out and explained why she had to go after Nikita because she needed to get the dead weight off of her back and blah 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 blah. And I got to be honest with you. As much as I bust Bianca's chops for being a completely unbelievable babyface every time she picks up the microphone, I wasn't sure it was possible to be this unbelievable as a heel as Zoe Stark is. Yeah. Oof. It was, God love her for trying, but what are we doing here? What do we got here? Oh, look at this. Topsy, surprise you. Yeah, I thought for sure Blair was taking that title back then. Boy, didn't we all feel silly afterwards.
Are you finally going to put some respect on Mandy Rose's name?
There's always been respect there, and maybe a little bit of something else too, but I just don't understand why she still has the title. Anyway.
It doesn't seem like anybody's in line to take it next either.
Exactly. Like you look down the line, you look down the roster and you see the people who have already had a shot at her, and there have been a couple of people that would have been believable to supplant her as champ. I don't know who's coming next. Anywho, then we moved on to the big announcement from Shawn Michaels, general manager. And again, I give credit where credit's due because it's not every day you get a quote unquote new match. But NXT has come up with what they are calling the Iron Survivor. Maybe I'll get this right one time. Iron Survivor Challenge match. It will debut at Deadline. It will be a match. There will be one for the men. There will be one for the women. Each one will contain 5 superstars. It will have the Royal Rumble feel to it where 2 people will start and then people will come in at 5-minute intervals until all 5 are in the ring. However, falls count starting at any time, pinfall, submission, and DQ. And the idea is to rack up the most points /pin. So every time you get a pin or you're on the business end of a chair shot or you get a submission, you get a point. The person who swung the chair or took the pin or did the tapping then goes into the penalty box for 90 seconds. And again, it's only 25 minutes long. So at the end of 25 minutes, whoever has the most points is the winner of the match. And as the winner, you are now the number 1 contender in your division. So they're borrowing cool things like the penalty box idea from Impact, but managing not to put it in a match as stupid as the reverse ladder match. And the participants will be announced over the next, I think there's only 2 shows before Deadline. Maybe a 3rd show, I'm not sure. But yeah, no one's been announced so far. So everyone, I guess, pretty much is going to be working on getting themselves into this match because right now there's no criteria. There's no qualifying matches set up, but we'll see how that goes going forward.
Yeah, there's three shows including tonight.
There you go. Okay.
I'd say Grayson Waller and Indy Hartwell win their matches.
Yeah, I see big things for, it looks like Indy's getting that push.
Yeah.
Getting back to last week in the going away from the singles, going into the tag team division, we had the in-ring return of Indus Sher. John Smith, why don't you tell us all about this one?
Yeah, Indus Sher against Inaction. I don't remember their names. Their names are not relevant because they did not land one offensive maneuver, I don't believe. I don't remember seeing one, at least. Sanga and Veer just back and forth tagging on the first inaction, and then they throw him over to the corner, and Veer tells inaction number 2 to tag in, who then just stands there and doesn't do anything because he's in fear and doesn't want to come in. Veer grabs his arm and smacks inaction 1 with inaction 2's hand, and then throws him like a spear face first into the ring onto the mat. Like no flip, nothing, just falling face first. And more brutality ensues. And with a pretty weak finisher by Indus Sher compared to all the brutality they were dishing out throughout the match. It's basically just like a second rope falling chop, like single axe handle while a backbreaker is happening. And yeah, we got. I mean, Veer seems vicious, and Sanga is just like he's getting there, but he's not there just yet. It seems.
Yeah, and afterwards, they kind of called out the Creeds. They basically told the Creeds, the reason we're coming for you is because everyone seems to respect you, but they don't respect us. So sorry to tell you, we have to destroy you so that we can take that respect. And we cut backstage. The Creeds are in the dojo. They're not afraid. They don't care who they've got to beat on their way back towards Pretty Deadly and the tag titles. Indus Sher is just another rung on the ladder for them.
I just have to say, sorry, before we leave, that could be like the NXT version of the Dark Order as a tag team, the Inactions. I said we have Inaction 1 and Inaction 2. And that would be. I just sat and laughed, John, whenever you were like, he took Inaction 1 and they headed into Inaction 2 to tag him. I could just imagine him on commentary talking. Imagine Booker T. Oh dear. Oh dear.
I was just picturing them with the T-shirts from the cartoons, the Thing 1 and Thing 2. Like, have their own special logo and whatnot. And in case anyone from their family is listening, let's give a tip of the cap to George Cannon and Ariel Dominguez, a.k.a. Inaction 1 and 2. We had another tag match between the Dyad and Josh Briggs and Brooke Jensen. This match, it's weird. This match was more about setting up the females because as it was only a 3.5 minute match, the Dyad won with not quite. No, I'm looking at the wrong match there. There we go. It was only a 4-minute match. There you go. They didn't quite hit the ticket to Mayhem. They kind of grabbed who was it? Briggs's head and brought them. It was kind of like a double code breaker. But the match was more about the fact that Kiana James came down to ringside. She threw a haymaker at Fallon Henley, and they kind of did their thing outside, and they caused a distraction that led to the double code breaker and the win for the Dyad. We also had a match between Indy Hartwell and Tatum Paxley, where Tatum Paxley, I guess, broke her nose, hurt her face, whatever. She's wearing one of those cages. And Indy, she kind of accidentally tore the mask off, like taking a swipe at her head. And again, there doesn't seem to be a lot of ill intent there, but she kind of tossed the mask out to Ivy Nile, who of course comes to the ring with Tatum Paxley, and then Indy would win with a forearm shiver to the back of the head. Backstage, Roxanne Perez came up to Indy again and said to her, like, don't you think it was going a little too far to rip her mask off? And once again, Indy told her, I'm just trying to get in the Iron Survivor Challenge. I'm trying to move up the card here. Leave me alone. I'm not worried about friends. I'm worried about moving towards a title. We had a digital exclusive where Elektra Lopez saw Roxy and Indy kind of arguing backstage off camera too. So look for that to come. It's not officially booked for tonight, but I'm sure we're going to see it in the next couple of weeks. But talking about those two separate incidents in the women's division brings us around to a pick for tonight, where Ivy Nile will be taking on Kiana James, who took the swipe at Fallon Henley. John Smith, NXT Guru, who you got in this one? Ivy Nile and Kiana James.
I'm just gonna go with the better wrestler on this one. I'm going with Ivy Nile.
Yeah, we get Grizzled Young Veterans away from Gacy. Mm-hmm. Anything that gets GYV on the TV is okay with me. But I'm sorry, John. Getting back to you, you had Ivy Nile because she is the better wrestler. And
Yeah, that's basically my tiebreaker when I can't figure it out. It's like, I'll take the better person.
exactly. I don't know where the hell they're going with this storyline, but this one, this one's the better wrestler. I will agree with you. Gary, what say you, Ivy Nile and Kiana James?
I'll go the opposite then. I'll go Kiana James because she's sticking her nose into a few storylines at the minute, and I think they're so for whatever reason she'll eke this one out.
Okay. Oh, hopefully she gets a little outside help from her assistant, Gianna or Giovanna, whatever they're going to wind up calling her when they actually call her by name.
The winner is definitely me then.
Yes, indeed. Yes, every time she pops up on the screen, which is not consistent, the winner is us. Then we had Duke Hudson backstage. He had to explain to Andre Chase why he threw in the towel the previous week. He said he knew that Andre had no quit in him, and he just couldn't stand to see his mentor suffer because Chase U would be nothing without their leader. I'm not entirely sure Andre was buying it, but Thea Hale seems to be buying in. She said he's kind of growing on her, which will make it all that much more glorious when Duke inevitably screws them over somehow. Wendy Chu was also backstage with Mackenzie. She called Cora Jade a petulant child and told her she should take a look in the mirror. But wait until next week when you've got two black eyes, because tonight we're going to get Cora Jade and Wendy Chu one-on-one. Gary, how do you see this one working out?
I have two things about this. Number one, I don't want to recap this next week. And number two, because I love obviously Wendy Chu. I'm going Cora Jade. I think she's is the future of the division on the main roster. Never mind here. I really do. Her and Roxanne, I think, will be. So I am saying Cora Jade.
All right. Well, you've now guaranteed yourself you'll be breaking that down next week. And John Smith, what do you think of this match?
Yeah, I agree there. Cora Jade definitely is the future of this division. Whoever's the next champ, it'll probably be a transitional champ to get it to Cora Jade because they won't have Mandy versus Cora. But yeah, Cora's gonna win this one. Wendy's gonna fall asleep.
And put us to sleep in the meanwhile. No, that would just.
I think that needs to be Wendy Chu's finisher, like they go to sleep. I think that's what she needs. Like she should be taking that as her finisher. Actually,
how is that not the case already? Why do we have to continue to keep booking for these people? So all those women are moving towards being amongst the 5 superstars they're going to be in that Iron Survivor Challenge. 2 people who are not really worried about that just yet because they're already fighting for a belt this week. They sat down with Booker T last week. That would be Carmelo Hayes and Wes Lee. They signed their contract for the North American Championship title match. Melo did his whole spiel about he's obsessed with being the A champion. Wesley got a nice line in when he told him he had to wrap his head around being the X champion. But everything was still kind of, friendly until Trick Williams had to start running his mouth, and then things almost got physical, but Booker T put a squash on that immediately. That's not happening in one of his segments. They signed the contracts. They're moving on tonight in what I have to assume is going to be the main event. Wesley, your North American champion, defending against Carmelo Hayes. John Smith, how do you see this one breaking down?
That's tonight, huh? I'm gonna go with Wes. Carmelo's got to move on. I think have a couple high quality feuds and then move into a world title feud or something. Wesley still needs to get that victory over him, and I think he'll get it now. And maybe he'll even cheat a little bit to do it. Just to protect Melo a little bit while he moves on. Yeah,
there you go. Gary, what say you, sir? Wesley Carmelo.
I think this will be the Booker T shucky ducky quack quack match of the night. He'll sneak that in somewhere. I say this. I could see them on the one hand going with Melo because, as John was saying, he's right. They're going to move him up the card, so giving him a belt to kind of get him there. But at the same time, I do think that it'll be a win for Wesley, and as John says, possibly some sort of slightly underhanded way just to kind of get one over on him. But
yeah, maybe we get Trick screwing up and costing Mello or something like that. Something to protect Mello as he's headed upwards, even if he's not taking this title. All right, that's going to do it for NXT. Let's jump back a little bit and go to Friday night on SmackDown. We started with a World Cup match between Ricochet and Mustafa Ali. Ricochet wins with the shooting star press in a very good, little more than 11-minute match. Afterwards, New Day is backstage with Kayla. They're disappointed at losing their record, but they're going to fight on. Imperium interrupts. They say New Day is everything that's wrong with wrestling. The New Day say they're offended. They're going to find a partner, and let's fight about it. Gary, how did this one work out? New Day found themselves a partner, and they took on Imperium.
That they did. Their partner was Braun Strowman, and as he was making his way down the aisle, Imperium decided to kind of start a brawl before he got there, and we ended up with Kofi was about to do a trust fall off the top, but he got caught, and Kaiser and Vinci slammed him into the apron. And as I nearly said, as Tiger Woods, I genuinely did, as Xavier Woods was running across the ring. So I was just looking at my notes and I was thinking of something else as well, and genuinely almost said Tiger Woods. As Xavier Woods was running across to dive onto them, Gunther gave him a chop. Now a lot of the match was Gunther avoiding Braun Strowman. They were trying to keep the two sort of big guys apart. But as it came to the end, you had Braun doing his charge around the ring. And going around, and he was chasing Gunther, and he ended up hit Gunther with a spine buster, but he kicked out. Kofi took out Ludwig Kaiser with a crossbody, tagged in Xavier Woods, but they ended up nailing Ludwig Kaiser with the Midnight Hour, and the New Day and Braun Strowman took the win.
Yes, indeed. Later on, we had Strowman backstage with Kayla. He's looking forward to getting his hands on Gunther when it's just one-on-one after he goes ahead and wins the World Cup. Well, Ricochet was nearby, and he didn't want Braun to start looking right past him. And I guess I'm assuming this came out of something Braun said on social media. He said, basically, don't look past the flippy flippers. Your words, not mine, Braun. And Braun just kind of rolled his eyes. So obviously he's got, the big guys got unkind things to say about the small guys on social media. Not a big surprise there. However, that leads us to this week where Ricochet and Braun will meet in a World Cup semifinal. John Smith, let's bring you into the conversation. Why don't you pick this one first for us?
I can't imagine a world where Ricochet beats Braun Strowman, so I got to go with Braun here.
I can't say that I blame you. Gary, what say you, sir?
I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say that with the interplay between Braun and Gunther from last week, that at some point during the match, Gunther gets involved and ends up taking out Braun, and so almost without Ricochet knowing it, something has happened, and Ricochet will beat him.
Okay, I can see that. That would certainly be an entertaining storyline.
Maybe Gunther attacks Ricochet to get Braun disqualified.
Yeah,
there you go. I'm gonna go chalk and say Strowman too, because unfortunately they're not listening to all our good ideas here sometimes. So we had our weekly Bray Wyatt segment where he came to the ring and he called out LA Knight, said he wanted to apologize for the headbutt last week. Once again, he's constantly fighting against his worser demons. LA Knight came out, pretended like he was going to accept the apology just to get close enough to slap Bray Wyatt. And credit to Wyatt, like facial expressions are a lot in wrestling. You can do a lot just with your eyes and with your face. If I'm going to murder you had a face, that's the look that Bray Wyatt gave LA Knight. But then he decided to give him a pass. Said, okay, I'm going to let you get that one. I get the headbutt last week. Now we're even. But shake my hand and accept. LA Knight, okay, I'll shake your hand. Slapped him again. And then hightailed it. Then we see LA Knight backstage a few moments later. He's kind of on his way out the door. Let's not kid ourselves. He's kind of running. He got stopped backstage by, who was it? Megan, I think. And Megan Morant asked him, hey, are you running away? He's like, hey, no, I punched the clock. I'm done for the day. I'm going home. Don't you go home after you're done with work? The whole time he's holding the door open, and there's just a black nothingness beyond. We don't see outside. We don't see a hallway. It's just black. And then we see a little figure, a masked figure in the background that LA Knight doesn't see. He finishes talking to Megan. He takes off into the black void. The door closes. We come back from a commercial break, and he's now in a fully lit hallway, but he is just buried under every piece of garbage and chairs and cables and anything they could find backstage in an arena. And, we just don't know who beat him up and left him. Anywho, later in the evening, we had a match between Shotzi and Shayna Baszler. About 4 minutes into this not quite 5-minute match, Raquel came out to ringside, and she didn't do anything. She just kind of stood there, but I guess the distraction, Shayna, I guess, was showing off. She set up to stomp on Shotzi's elbow and break her arm and whatnot, but Shotzi got out of the way, rolled her up for the 1-2-3, and then her and Raquel hightailed it out of there to stay away from not only Shayna, but her second at ringside, Ronda Rousey. That leads us to tonight, where we will get a tag match between all those players I just previously mentioned. Gary, how do you see this one working out between Raquel and Shotzi taking on Ronda and Shayna?
I'm going to say Raquel and Shotzi go over, because I think they need to kind of give her something as she's going towards Ronda, because everybody's kind of going, Ronda's going to walk over her on Saturday. So they need just something that at least put a little bit of doubt in people's minds. So I think they'll go that way. All
right, John Smith, what say you?
I'm going to go the other way with it. Shotzi just got her Raw roll-up on Shayna this past week. What is Shayna going to get rolled up by Raquel this time? Or they, I don't know. I think since Ronda's in the match, Ronda will end up taking the victory in some fashion.
Okay. I'm going to side with Gary on this one. I think, I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Shotzi roll up Shayna again. We do know that it is Shayna's kryptonite, but I think they'll give Shotzi some kind of the always important momentum going into this big match to try and sell you on the fact that she's got a snowball's chance in hell at Survivor Series. Okay, the show opened with the Brutes and their buddy Drew McIntyre coming to the ring. Sheamus asked Drew to officially be an honorary Brute and join him for War Games. Of course, he accepted. But who will be the fifth man? Sami Zayn came out to interrupt them and say it doesn't matter because the Bloodline doesn't care who the fifth man is. The Bloodline doesn't care who any of them are. He guaranteed the Bloodline would win War Games. Backstage, Jey Uso chewed out Sami for running his mouth. And that seemed kind of the opposite way around from the usual things. Jimmy calmed everyone down. And then we'll get back to that a little bit later because something happens kind of in between here that we need to cover too. We had ourselves a match between Karrion Kross and Madcap Moss. Now, last time Kross choked out Moss, Moss was still selling that he could barely talk. It had been a while. Emma, who seems to be crushing on Madcap Moss, told him to use his speed to beat the big man, brought him a bottle of water for his scratchy throat, and eventually Moss, with a big smile on his face because a pretty girl, gave him a boost. He headed out there. And John Smith, tell us what happened when he met up with Karrion Kross again.
Yeah, Emma gave him some good advice to use his speed against Kross. And when that bell rang, he came right at him and beat him into the corner. And then the ref pulled him off. And he backed off and then juked the referee and went right back and kept beating him up and threw him out of the ring and then back into the ring. And Kross got in like a suplex or two, and then Moss took over again and threw him out, and then Scarlett got in the way. And that gave Kross the upper hand for a second. They got back in the ring. Kross threw on the Kross jacket while standing, and Moss picked him up and slammed him to the ground. Cross sold it for about a half a second, then he popped up and blocked him right back in it, and he doesn't hold his face anymore, which I like. There's no reason to ever put your hand on your face in that situation. And he choked him out, and he would not let go. And we had to have the refs come out and all that, and then Emma came out. And maybe we'll get to see Emma versus Scarlett at some point. That'd be fun.
That would be very interesting. Yes. So, okay. So Karrion Kross takes that one. Getting back to the Bloodline then became obsessed after Sammy ran his mouth with figuring out who the fifth man was. They bumped into Karrion Kross backstage and asked him if he was perhaps the fifth man. Kross said he's not a follower. He's a leader. When it comes time for him to come and take Roman's titles, he'll come straight at him. Okay. I'm sure they didn't exactly enjoy hearing that, but he's not the fifth man. Moving along, we had I forgot about this one. We had another World Cup match on this same broadcast. Gary, what happened when Butch met up with Sami Zayn after Sami was busy running his mouth earlier in the show?
Yeah, this was a great match. This is a match I think specifically booked just for me. Again, I was loving it. Butch hit Sami with a penalty kick, but then we had Sami catching Butch when he was in midair, hit the sit-out powerbomb, got a 2. And there's a lot of back and forward outside the ring between the Bloodline and the Brawling Brutes. Butch had a tornado DDT. Sami shoved him off the top turnbuckle and into the barricade. Now, Jay Uso got up on the apron, but Butch knocked him down. And when the referee was distracted, Jay then hit Butch with an enziguri, which allowed Sami got a near fall with hitting the Blue Thunderbomb. They then started, the brawl really started at ringside between them all, and the Usos were taking over until Butch hit them with a moonsault from the top turnbuckle to the outside. But as Sami had hit Butch with an exploder and getting ready for the haluva kick, but he couldn't quite hit it because Jay was thrown into the ring. But that allowed then Sami to be distracted, and Butch hit him with the bitter end, and Butch pinned him and advances in the World Cup.
Yes, indeed. And then the fight continued around ringside, but we'll put that off for just a moment to take care of business for this week, where we will get the World Cup semifinal between Santos Escobar and our boy Butch. John Smith, let's bring you into this one. Your boy Santos. Who do you see moving on in this one?
Ooh, this one's tough. Just because Butch is involved in like the bloodline stuff, I'm gonna have to go with Santos on this one.
Yeah,
I'll go with Santos.
Back to you, Gar. Santos Escobar and Butch World Cup semifinal. What do you see taking this?
Yeah,
one?
I'm gonna go against myself here and pick Santos as well, and I think that actually that would give you, or if I was right, if my results are right, you'd end up with Ricochet against Santos in the final, which if they just gave them 10, 15 minutes and said, go ahead, lads, would be brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. So therefore, I'm going to go Santos.
Yeah, I'm right there with both of you gents. I think Santos Escobar takes this one. Now, getting back to the post-match fight between the Bloodline and at the moment, the 4 members that we know from Team Brutes, it raged on and on until the big music hit and Roman Reigns came to ringside and he started handing out Superman punches and working over everyone on Team Brutes kind of one by one until the big surprise of the week that I don't think was really a huge surprise to any of us. Presumably number 5 for Team Brutes, another honorary Brute, Kevin Owens showed up. He had a little back and forth with Roman. It ended with him taking a Superman punch to start, but eventually avoiding a spear and landing a stunner of his own. This will take us to this week, where Drew McIntyre and Sheamus will go against the Usos in the War Games Advantage match to see how that one's going to play out on Saturday. let's go right back to you, Gary. Your boy Drew, Sheamus, the Usos. How does this one work out? Who gets the advantage?
I'm going to say the Usos will win it and get the advantage. I always think these sort of matches are better when the heels, although I know obviously the bloodline are being cheered, but they're better when the heels have the advantage. So I'm going to say by hook or by crook, the Usos are going to take it.
All righty, John Smith, what say you?
I'm going to disagree for two reasons. One, Rhea won the women's one, so that's the heels starting with that one. And also, this is a good way to hang an L on the Usos without taking the titles off of them.
Okay. I think I'm probably going to say the Usos too, because it just feels like, I know it doesn't happen 100% of the time. It just feels like like Gary said, the heels should always have the advantage here. So yeah, and they don't make it that much glorious when the faces come back against all odds. That's going to do it for SmackDown. So Gary, this is about the time where we say goodbye to you and let you actually have a nice night's rest. Before you go, anything you want to talk about, whether it be the fifth member of Team Bianca that we're supposed to find out this week, how you see anything happening on Survivor Series, or any reactions to either Overdrive or Full Gear from this last week, anything you'd like to tell us?
I mean, I've seen a few rumors, obviously, about who the fifth member could be. There's been a lot of stuff about Becky Lynch and all this sort of stuff. I would quite like it even to be somebody like just from off the wall, and somebody like Mako Satomura to come in. I know a few of the NXT ones are about, just to bring somebody like that.
Sure.
And I'm really worried because it's the 25th anniversary of the Montreal Screwjob that even Hunter won't be able to help himself, and something random will happen on the show. I hope it doesn't, but we'll see. As far as the other shows we had this weekend, I would have put the belt on MJF, so that was okay. I would have had the Elite go over. As much as I wouldn't be a fan of it, I think I would have put them over, but I know why they didn't, just to kind of temper it a little bit. And also, it has to be said, my parting gift to the world will be Jordan Grace. Yeah, you stick being champion there, my friend. No, Jordan Grace is absolutely amazing. I've been a fan of her for years. I've known her for a while, and it's like she is top quality.
Yeah, it's a hell of a performance in that one. All right, Gary, we're going to let you get some rest. Thank you so much for joining us, as always, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, I shall see you later. Have a good one.
All right, sir. Peace. All right, let's take that off. I managed to keep that up almost the entire time. That's amazing. Let's go here. Keep the... Yep.
When are we finding out who the fifth member is? On Monday, on Friday, or like at the match?
No, they made a point of mentioning last night, and Bianca got booed from the crowd when she said, "We'll let you all know on We're going to show up on SmackDown." Now, I don't know if that means they're going to SmackDown to invite someone, or they're just drawing it out, but they're going to announce on Friday.
Yeah, maybe it's Liv Morgan.
Yeah, I didn't even think about her, but she would make a lot of sense, especially if they are going to SmackDown specifically.
If it's not going to be like Becky or Charlotte, I feel like the return of them should be at a pay-per-view, not just like we're announcing them the day before a pay-per-view, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you don't want to give that away in that manner. I thought Charlotte should have already been back, but that's story.
And nobody else is gonna pop the crowd. Like,
right.
Is Aaliyah gonna get a response if they pick her, or like Tamina or something?
And like we said last week, the person who makes the most sense is Candice, who got beat up by Team Damage Control, but that's not going to get any reaction at all, and you almost don't want to see them do that to Candice.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so let's move on to Raw, and we're going to kind of roll Raw into the Survivor Series because a lot of what happened kind of set the stage, as I said earlier. We started the evening. No, we didn't start the evening, but I'm going to start the recap with a match that happened well into the show. Elias and Riddle. They had been kind of teasing this one for a couple of weeks because the Alpha Academy had been running their mouths as they beat them in separate singles matches. Well, of course, Elias and Riddle teamed up, and they beat the Alpha Academy. Elias hit the drift away or whatever he's calling it now on Gable. Riddle followed with the floating bro, and it was a really good match for almost 16 minutes, but the Alpha Academy eat the loss there. Then we had Johnny Gargano backstage with Kathy Kelly. He's challenged Miz to a rematch for this evening after, their match got a little wacky last week. And of course, we go to break. We assume that the match is happening. Gargano comes down to ringside. Come back from a break. Miz explains that he injured himself making a TikTok. His hand was, wrapped just to prove it because we believe everything Miz says. But he found a replacement. And out comes Omos. I held my breath, hoping against hope that maybe it would be Ciampa, because we haven't seen him in months now, it feels like. But it was Omos, and therefore it went exactly the way you think it went. Gargano had a couple of moments of offense, but in the end, it was a choke slam, not a choke bomb. It was only about 3 minutes. But it leads us to this. This coming week on Raw, Miz will finally face Dexter Lumis one-on-one. If Dexter wins, he gets his contract. John Smith, are we bringing Dexter into the fold here? Is he getting his contract?
Yeah, he seems to be getting pretty over with the crowd, too. Like, people are actually cheering when they see him. It's not just like, who the heck is this guy? Even though they don't know who he is. I mean, you gotta attribute some of that to them just hating the Miz in general. But yeah, I think this will be a big pop moment on SmackDown when Dexter chokes out Miz with that side choke.
Yes, Miz will be silenced. All right, moving along, we had AJ Styles backstage with Kathy Kelly, and the OC, of course, was there with him. He plans to give Finn Balor the beating he deserves at Survivor Series. Finn showed up and was like, "Oh, what are you talking about? I'm a good guy. What are you talking about?" And that was all just a setup for Rhea to attack Mia Yim from behind. They brawled all around the backstage area, actually out into the parking lot. That all takes us to our first Survivor Series pick of the show. We're going to go with AJ Styles versus Finn Balor at Survivor Series War Games. John Smith, how do you see this one working out?
A winner is all of us on this one, because this is going to be match of the show. It's going to have to be. I don't see how it's not. I think Finn Balor takes it. AJ Styles has no problem laying down for anyone, and it really seems like they're building Finn up, over the past few weeks, and he's been his promo has been a lot more serious and not dark, but just like do you know who the hell I am kind of stuff, So I'm gonna go with Finn on this one.
Okay, yeah, I mean, as much as it pains me to ever pick against Styles, I feel like if the Judgment Day is going to continue to be relevant, you want to put AJ Styles in anything, you just put AJ Styles in there because he's AJ Styles. If the Judgment Day is going to continue to be relevant, which, for the sake of Dom Mysterio, they better be, because I don't know what the hell he's going to do if Judgment Day goes away. You need Finn Balor to win this one. So I'm going to agree with you that Balor takes this one at Survivor Series. And like you said, this should be the show stealer. And it should be, right now we got a 5-match card that obviously you got to think something's going to come out of SmackDown. It's going to at least give us one more match. But even if you look at both of the War Games matches going about 45 minutes between introductions and all the in-ring stuff, that puts you at an hour and a half. This match could get 25 to 30 minutes, and whoa, would we be the winners if that was the case?
That could be match of the year.
Yeah, it's good. It's got all the elements, and those elements are Finn Balor and AJ Styles.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is also crazy because the current match of the year is completely the opposite. It's Gunther and Sheamus.
Right. it is just, red-chested chopping and slapping fests. So
Word.
this will be quite opposite of that, I would wager. We had Seth Rollins being interviewed via satellite by Corey Graves. He's ready for his triple threat match at Survivor Series, which he says won't be a War Games match, but he promises it'll be a war. Austin Theory was watching backstage. He said he's hit rock bottom, but it turns out that was the best thing for him. The disrespect will end this Saturday. He then went out and put a loss on Mustafa Ali with A-Town down in a little under 6 minutes. But after that, the Tron lit up again, and Bobby Lashley had a little message for Austin Theory. He said, let's give the folks a little sneak peek at Survivor Series. Stay right where you are. I'll be right down. Theory is a lot less goofy these days. In fact, he's kind of got a case of the red ass, so he was, ready to take him on, just waited right there, and Bobby came out, and then Bobby did Bobby things and beat him around the ringside. At one point, Theory hit Bobby with a chair, which Bobby completely no-sold, and then you saw the blood drain from Theory's face, and he ran through the crowd and backstage. Bobby gave chase. They ran into Mustafa Ali, who was just backstage past, gorilla position, still trying to catch his breath. Theory used him as a projectile to throw at Bobby and then took off. Bobby was angry, so Ali was there. So he finished beating the hell out of Ali and putting him to sleep in the Hurt Lock. All that brings us to the Survivor Series match. It is a triple threat. It is for the United States Championship, the belt on Monday Night Raw. Seth Rollins, your current champion, Bobby Lashley, Austin Theory. John, how do you see this one going?
I'm surprised that they didn't include Ali in this match. I don't see him not getting involved at some point. So, Ali will be involved. What he does will probably go after Bobby Lashley, and that'll leave Seth Rollins to pin Theory, I think. I don't think Seth got this belt so he could lose it so soon. So, although I'd love to see Austin Theory take it, but I think Rollins retains.
Yeah. Bobby's been this champion. Theory has been this champion. As much as I like his storyline now of I'm done with all the crap, I'm angry, I'm mad, and I'm going to go on and be a badass. You're absolutely right. I think they just put this on Rollins to kind of cement the fact that, oh yeah, we still have no world champion on Raw. So I don't think you want it bouncing around too much. So I think I'm with you there. I'm going to say Rollins retains. And yeah, I thought that's exactly where we were going last night when they started throwing Ali around. I thought this was going to be a fatal four-way. I guess technically they still have time to do it, but as of right now, it's a triple threat. That's how we're picking it.
Yeah, I'm thinking they might actually announce it like during the pre-show or something.
Yeah, have him attack somebody on the during the pre-show, and they book it on the fly. Why not? They've done it before. All right, as we discussed earlier, SmackDown will feature a match where Raquel Rodriguez and Shotzi take on Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. And that takes us to the one world title match on the Survivor Series card, and that is Ronda Rousey defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Shotzi. How do you see this one, John?
I'm pretty confident in my other picks, and I still think this is the easiest pick on the card. Ronda beats Shotzi. Little interference by Shayna since they're heels now, but whatever.
Sure. Yeah. I think this is one of those quick no-brainers. Ronda's definitely not losing the title to Shotzi, and that's pretty much all that needs to be said. All right, we had a segment where Bianca, Alexa, and Asuka came to the ring. Bianca said that Bayley's team is playing games while her team is ready for war, and all the rhetoric that goes into this. Their fifth member will be announced at SmackDown. Like I said, that brought out Team Damage Control, where Bayley said that Bianca's just stalling. She still doesn't know who her fifth team member is going to be because no one likes her and no one respects her. This led us to the War Games Advantage match last night on Raw between Rhea Ripley and Asuka. John Smith, I'll bet you have something to say about this one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Asuka, in my opinion, is like the best women's wrestler of all time. And this match was pay-per-view quality, pay-per-view main event quality, possibly the best women's match of the year so far. These two just went at it, and they both have that strong style about them. One's British, one's Japanese. We got some nice hip attacks by Asuka and some nice strength moves by Rhea, but it's not about any one move. It's just the way that this match was worked. It was an awesome match, and by the end of it, they were going back and forth with just ducking and dodging each other's moves back and forth, and then all of a sudden, Rhea grabs Asuka's wrist from between her legs and does her riptide move and pins her out of nowhere. You did not see it coming, but it was an awesome end to a great match. These two can go, and I wanted Io and Asuka, and sure, maybe they would have had just as good a match, but I'm happy this is what we got.
Yeah, we got 16 minutes of it, and by no means was I looking at my watch going, geez, when's this one going to end? Because it could have gone another 10 minutes, and I'd have been perfectly happy.
Yeah, and everything broke down after the fact, and both teams went at each other in basically their club clothes. they looked like they were ready for a night of clubbing, both sides. And they were just beating the hell out of each other, and then Asuka hits the big splash to everybody from the top rope to the outside to close out the show.
There you go. So like John said, they brawled right through to the end of the show last night, and that takes us to the reason why they all seem to hate each other. It's War Games. You got Team Damage Control, Bayley, Dakota, Io, Nikki Cross, and Rhea Ripley against Team Bianca, which as it stands right now is Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, Asuka, and Mia Yim. John, we've already kind of made our guesses on who might be the fifth person. If anything has come to you since then, by all means, let us know. But more importantly, who do you see taking between Team Damage Control and Team Belair? Who wins War Games?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Liv Morgan as the fifth person. Otherwise, I think it'll be some rando, like maybe an NXT girl or something. Who wins this? I gotta go with Damage Control here and Nikki and Rhea. Bianca is just untouchable. So, like, kind of the same way I said about the Usos losing to in that tag match on Friday or whatever, because they, you can hang an L on them without losing the title. I think this is the same way. This is, Bianca loses without losing her title.
Do you see her taking a pin here, or just losing as a team?
No, maybe. I mean, Bayley's laid down to her twice, so maybe Bayley pins her, or maybe I would love to see Rhea actually be the one that pins Bianca, because then you could just roll that over into a feud between those two, kind of like how Raquel did that to Rhea in NXT in War Games.
Exactly where I was going with this, and I think it also happened at the end of Io's run too. She was pinned in War Games, and then her challenger would wind up taking the title from her. So I think Hunter likes that way of booking, especially in the women's division. So I'm going to agree with you that Damage Control takes this one, and I could legitimately see it being Rhea pinning Bianca to finish it out. Okay. We had last night we had KO to the ring. That actually started the show. KO opened the show, coming to the ring, reminding us why he joined the War Games team, and it was just one reason: to remind Reigns that he's taken him to the limit before, and he plans to do it again because he wants to take his titles. He brought out the Brutes and Drew McIntyre, who were on loan from SmackDown. The Judgment Day interrupted because they run Raw, and they wanted to just remind them of that. Sheamus wound up having some words with them. It wound up as a six-man tag between the original troika of the three Brutes and the Judgment Day. The Brutes would get the win. They started this one in the commercial break. It went another 15 minutes once we got back to TV, and it ended with Dom eating a brogue kick just like it should have. Afterwards, Judgment Day continued to attack the Brutes. That brought KO off of the announce desk where he had spent the match. He hits Balor with a stunner. We go backstage. Oh, that's right, because JBL and Baron Corbin were playing poker again. Drew McIntyre, who, as I said, was brought over with the Brutes by Kevin Owens. He has some words backstage. It leads to him having a match with Baron Corbin. This one went almost 18 damn minutes before Drew. He missed the Claymore once. Then he got screwed up on the timing when JBL jumped up on the apron a second time. Eventually, the third time, he hits that Claymore to get the victory. And that, if I remember correctly, closed the show. And more importantly, what it brings us to is the last pick for Survivor Series. It's Team Bloodline versus Team Brutes. How do you see this one working out, John?
It's hard to pick against the Bloodline, man. Like they're such like a solid unit or whatever you want to call it. But I think Sami Zayn's going to prove to be the weak link here, and I think he's going to take the pin from. Maybe he gets all 5 moves hit on him before somebody pins him. But I got Sami being the weak link and taking the pin here.
It's hard to argue with that. Yes, I mean Sami, runs his mouth. Sami eats the pin. These matches are kind of set up for the heels to get their comeuppance, but I don't think we're going to see it once again. I think both of the bad guys here take this. Yeah, the Bloodline is just they're too. No, excuse me, Jesus, I'm double talking myself. I think this is where we actually see the good guys get the one up on them because, quite frankly, as far as Roman and the Usos go, it won't really matter. And like I said, and like you said, it probably will be Sami that eats the pin.
Maybe it's Jay because that'll be like something that'll be good for storyline or whatever.
Yeah. And somehow he finds a way to blame it on Sami because maybe Sami ducked out of the way and Jay took a Claymore or something like that. As opposed to Sami usually stepping in front of them. That's how he became the honorary Uce, etc. But this card seems a little short. It's only 5 matches as it stands right now. We've given some ideas of maybe how they extend that, but the matches that are there look real good. I'm not overly excited about Ronda and Shotzi, but the other 4 I think will be entertaining to really, really entertaining, especially in the case of Styles and Balor.
I'd like to see them do some sort of Survivor Series style match. There's no tag teams on this whole card, so maybe even 4-on-4 or 8-on-8, like 4 teams on 4 teams. Just to have one Survivor Series match. Break things up in the middle of it. Or maybe have it on the pre-show.
Yeah, they could definitely. There's 2 hours on Friday night to have somebody bump into somebody backstage, and it lead to a match that night, which leads to friends helping out, which leads to oh my god, look at what we've got here, and we slap one more match on this card. So yeah, I like your thinking there, sir. Okay, that's going to do it for Survivor Series. Let's pull that out of here, and let's go back to Overdrive. Well, let's start with Impact from last week because there was a little bit that led to Overdrive. We had Taurus taking out PJ Black with Destination Hellhole, putting himself into Overdrive. That is Black Taurus in the X Division title match. Also on that card, again, I don't know why they didn't save this for the special, but Sami Callihan came up with a new match, the Death Machine Double Jeopardy, where you had to be bleeding before you could be pinned or submitted. And, we took care of part of that right off the bat because Sami got jumped on the ramp before the match even started by Diener and Alan Angels and Big Con of Violent by Design. But in the end, EY got busted open plenty, putting himself in jeopardy, and it took 3 pile drivers, but the last one was a cactus driver for the win. This one went 19 minutes, And then Sammy left relatively unscathed because Violent by Design came back out. They weren't there to interfere in the middle of the match. They came back out at the end, and we closed the show with them just staring down at EY in a puddle of his own blood. I was kind of half waiting for them to jump him. It didn't happen, but there's some kind of uneasiness there going forward. We'll see how that plays out. We roll into Overdrive. We had the X Division car crash that we all saw coming, but it wasn't necessarily for anything. Rich Swann would defeat Kenny King, Yui Mora, Bhupinder, Mike Bailey, and Jason Hotch when he hit his handspring cutter on Hotch. That one went about 8 minutes. Now, Swann beat Laredo Kid the previous week, too, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him get that first X Division title match. And how did the X Division title match work out on Overdrive, John Smith? Tell us who the new champ is.
New champ, yes. We got Trey Miguel versus Black Taurus. They started off very lucha style, and Taurus was able to keep right up with Trey. Very agile for quite the big man that he is. Some pretty good moves by Trey. Like at one point, he when Taurus was on the outside, Trey runs up, bounces 1 foot off the second rope, does a full-on somersault, lands on Taurus' shoulders, and Hurricane Rana's him on the outside. And it was so fluid. Great match between these two. At the end of it, they're punching each other back and forth, and then they're both down, and then they get back up, and then they're no-selling big moves on each other, like big hits. I mean, like a big kick, a big headbutt, and then all of a sudden they double headbutt each other, and they're down again. And then by the end of it, it was just Trey Miguel was too much for Taurus, and he ends up hitting I'm sorry. He when he was on the outside, he grabbed himself a can of spray paint. I didn't even know what he was holding. He was holding it real tight. It was a real tiny can of spray paint. He throws the cap off to the side. The referee chases the cap like a stupid cat instead of wondering what the hell's in his hands. And I mean, at first I thought that it was mace a la Scarlet, but the announcers knew right away that it was spray paint. So Taurus got spray painted in the face, in the eyes, and then Trey hits his spinning backbreaker move that I forget what it's called for the 1, 2, 3. And Trey Miguel turns heel. He won't let the ref raise his hand. He rips his hand away from the ref, and he's like, "Oh, it's all me." So now we got a heel Trey Miguel, which is going to be weird.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it lends itself to going right back where I think we thought this was going in the tournament. Super duper good guy with his, pearly white teeth, Mike Bailey, eventually come and be the one to try and save us from evil Trey Miguel. But like I said, Rich Swann has put together a couple of wins. I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe get the first shot. But you got to think they're coming back around to Trey and Ballbag, because that's going to be a hell of a match.
That'll be like Karate Kid.
Exactly. We had also on the Countdown show, we had the Motor City Machine Guns beating Bullet Club in what I don't remember them telling us last week, but they told us the day of, turned out to be a number 1 contenders match. Shelley took Bay down with a crucifix. Saban flipped into a jackknife cover. Cha-ching. Roll-up victory there for the Guns in 13 minutes. So they will get a shot at the tag champs. The tag champs coming out of that event. Where in the hell in my notes are... There we go. Heath and Rhino. It actually was right after that, kind of. Heath and Rhino retained over the major players. When the Machine Guns came down to ringside, they set up chairs to take a look to see who their next opponent was going to be. And for whatever reason, Cardona tried to use one of those chairs, but Chris Sabin didn't allow it. Rhino would gore Myers, 11 minutes, 27 seconds. Heath and Rhino retain. and they will meet the Motor City Machine Guns somewhere down the line. That will be fun. We had the other tag titles being defended as well. We had the Death Dolls taking on Tasha and Savannah for the Knockouts tag titles. I started worrying going to this one because I had the Death Dolls retaining on our picks. And then they did this weird thing with Jessica the week before where she took a loss in singles action and she got so depressed she started drinking. She disappeared for a week. Nobody had seen her until she came out and made a save at the end of a singles match between Savannah and Taya, I think, who was it was supposed to be a match for Jessica, and she had to come out in the end and make the save, and she was still wearing the, hey, I'm drinking beer cans out of the side of my baseball helmet thing. So I was worried that the storyline was going to be that she was a sloppy drunk. We get to Overdrive. There's no mention of that. She hits the sick driver on Tasha, 8.5 minutes. The Death Dolls retain. Then we come to our tables match. Bully Ray and Moose. John, tell us how this one worked out.
Yeah, this one opened the main card. They set up some tables pretty much right away because right at the bell when Bully Ray was taking off the chains he was wearing around his neck and putting him on the corner, he got low blowed China style by Moose. So then Moose grabbed a couple tables, put them on the inside. We get some brutality by Moose for a little while until Bully Ray takes over, and then he's about to spear Moose through the table, but Moose moves and Bully goes through with him on his own. So Moose thinks he's won, and the ref has to explain it to him because this is his first table match, so he doesn't know the rules. Not like Bully Ray, the seasoned veteran of the tables match.
Didn't they mention that this was like his 80-something?
Yeah, I think they said 83rd or 84th.
That's insanity.
Yeah, so this one keeps going, obviously, and they go to the outside. At one point, Bully's set up on the top rope for the Moose wants to do a Hurricane Rana on him off the top. And Bully slides down and power bombs him. At another point, Moose did his thing where he runs towards the turnbuckle and steps up to the second and the third rope, and then turns around and flies back at you with a shoulder or crossbody or whatever. And Bully Ray turned it into 3D, an unassisted 3D,
1-man 3D. That was impressive.
Yeah, 1.5D. Is that what that is?
I think so. Yeah.
So just by the end of this, Moose hit the spear but not through a table, and then later on, Bully Ray ends up hitting a spear on Moose through a table. So he beats Moose with his own move through a table, and Moose is 0-1 in tables matches. This is going to be his bane forever. He just doesn't understand the rules of the tables match.
But what he should have understood was that, being a former football player, Bully hit him with it was obviously it was a spear, but it was like one of the prettiest form tackles I've ever seen in my life. It reminded me of like midget football practice. Like he wrapped him, picked him up, and shouldered him right through that table.
Yeah, hands behind the knees, like all that. Yeah,
that's it. All right. Then we had the two biggies, and they delivered. We had Jordan Grace and Masha in a last knockout standing match. And, I mean, I couldn't do this justice if I went move by move. I'm going to give you just a couple of the highlights. It went 21 minutes. I know I had Masha. Did you have Masha last week as well?
I took Masha, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they made a fool out of us. Jordan powerbombed Masha onto a steel chair. And I don't think I've ever seen a steel chair explode the way it did under Masha. Like, she's very lucky she didn't get impaled by one of the legs of it because it just disintegrated. Masha hit an air raid crash onto the other chair. Jordan hit a vertebraker, something you don't see all that much. Way to go, what was it, Evan Courageous who used that move originally? Or
I'm not even familiar with the move. I'm sure I've seen the move. I don't know what it is by the name.
so it's like the backpack pile drivers that Orange Cassidy uses and calls it the beach break. Somebody else calls it strong zero. Imagine the person flipped around. So they're back to back with you, but their head is by your ass. And you sit down and drive their neck into she drove her into a garbage can that way. I thought that Masha died. Things got physical. They went outside. Masha hit what we were calling the Moscow Sunrise, like Cole's Panama Sunrise. She delivered strong zero on the floor. That's that backpack power bomb or pile driver I was talking about. Then Masha sets up she pulls a door out from under the ring. She lays it kind of on the edge of the apron and then props it up on the other end with a garbage can. Okay. Grace is going through the door. You can see it coming, blah, 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 whether it be a snow plow or whatever. Jordan gets Masha up for a muscle buster. Oh crap! She's going through the door in a muscle buster. Well, that's not good enough. Choke on this Bianca Belair with Masha on her shoulders in muscle buster position. Jordan walks up the steps to drop her through the door, and I'll be damned, Masha does not beat the 10 count. Jordan kind of barely does. Jordan retains. This was as good as the male main event was. I think this one probably stole the show for Overdrive. It was 21 and a half minutes. Jordan Grace retains in a last knockout standing.
Wow.
And then all that was left was the main event. And this one I won't really go into all that much anyway, because what's more important was what happened afterwards. Josh retained. It was a fantastic 33-minute match with Kazarian, because what else could it have possibly been? He hits the C4 spike. He gets the 1, 2, 3. Afterwards, Bully Ray comes out. Josh has retained. Bully has told everyone in the world that he's going to come at him straight, and he does. He tells him that he tells Josh that he is the most credible world champion on the planet, and he swore he would do things right. He shakes his hand and says, "I'm doing things right. I'm telling you right now, I want you for the title at Hard to Kill." And it feels like the show is over. Josh rolls out of the ring. Bully doesn't necessarily follow him. You don't know where Bully's going. Josh goes over to hug and kiss his wife in the front row. And that's when douche Bully Ray appears, beats the hell out of Josh, zip ties him to the bottom rope, yanks his wife over the barricade. Josh breaks away from the zip tie, but by now Bully's got his wife's head between his thighs because he's going to pile drive her on the cement. Unfortunately, she wore 6-inch heels, so she's sliding all around on the concrete. She can barely stand up, bent over the way she is. And this is where Impact impacted. You knew Bully was going to be an a-hole. You knew he was going to do it at some point. No, do not and put in new software and shut down on me. I need my damn notes.
Oh, no.
So, he used there's nothing to gain here. He's already got the title shot. He's got the trophy, the call your shot. He's called his shot and booked his match. And he's got to be an a-hole. So he threatens to basically break Josh's wife's neck unless Josh hands him the belt. So he hands him the belt. He tosses his wife back at Josh, and he leaves with the belt and his trophy. It's not his belt. I'm not quite sure what the whole point of that last segment was. Yeah, I knew Bully was eventually going to turn, but I thought it would be more, for lack of a better term, impactful. It served no point at the end of this pay-per-view. But like I said, Impact going to impact.
And like what the whole stealing of the belt thing is pretty old and overdone, especially lately. I mean, it's happened forever, but I feel like it's happened multiple times in the past year or so.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to it on the next show.
Yeah, true.
So this week we don't have anything to pick because they're doing a Thanksgiving special, which usually is Wrestle House the last couple of years. I'm upset we're not getting that this year. But on Black Friday, they are taping an event in Winston-Salem, the city that Eric Bischoff ruined. They're doing the IPWF, which we're going to get for our viewing pleasure on December 2nd as Throwback Throwdown 3, which will be our next Impact Plus special. Who knows which character is going to be involved, but it'll be hilarious. And, God willing, if Al's back, him and I will be laughing like idiots throughout the entire week.
Isn't that in Pennsylvania, Winston-Salem?
No, North Kakalaki. That was Flair country. That's why it got ruined when WCW booked a fall brawl there, which usually had War Games and usually had the Horsemen, and they had none of the above. And they made Sting do a half-assed heel turn on Hogan at the time. And the fans didn't even boo Sting because nobody had forgiven Hogan for the NWO, even though he was back in the red and yellow. And it literally ruined the city of Winston-Salem for years. The wrestling really didn't go back. Certainly none of the big companies went back there.
The economy is still not recovered.
Oh, God. So that's going to do it for Impact. We're going to move on to the big AEW card from this past weekend. To set it up, we've got to go back a little bit. Back on Rampage, we had Hook retaining the FTW championship over Lee Moriarty. Not much to say about that one except Red Rum. Well, actually, the biggest thing to say about that one was that was an 8.5-minute Hook match. We've never seen that before, so yay. We had Athena defeating Madison Rayne on Rampage as well. Athena, apparently, if you watch Dark and Elevation, she's gone from everybody's best friend and a superhero female to now she's kind of heelish. So after she beat Madison Rayne with a move that I don't even know how to describe, where she just kind of rolled her off her shoulder and then kneed her in the face, she gets the win there, but she goes back on the attack. Aubrey Edwards tries to pull her off. She decks Aubrey. That brings out Mercedes Martinez, who we haven't seen since she last defended the Ring of Honor title on a Dynamite or a Rampage. So with Final Battle coming up in a couple of weeks on December 10th, maybe that's going to be your women's title match, but she really just came to the ring and Athena rolled out. There wasn't any physicality or anything like that, so who knows where that's going. Moving on to Full Gear. We had 0 Hour kicked off with the Best Friends. That was Chuck, Trent, Orange, Cassidy, Rocky Romero was there, and Danhausen was a member of their team, but didn't join them initially. They were taking on the Factory. That's QT, Nick Camarato, Aaron Solo, Lee Johnson, and Two Dimes, or I guess he's now Four Nickels, Cole Carter. A 10-man tag match. And I guess the whole thing was built around Danhausen. Like he had done some spooky videos or whatnot. And he shows up at the end of this match to join his 4 teammates. And he's got a little like small mason jar full of what you're led to believe are teeth. He pours them into Nick Camarato's mouth, then hits him with a big boot. So 10 teeth go flying out of his mouth. He gets the 1, 2, 3. I don't know if that's part of his gimmick going way back or anything like that. All I know is that he's very evil and very unnecessary, but that's how they won that one. Later on, Orange Cassidy's backstage. He has words with Jake Hager, and even though he kind of was nice to him, he told him he liked his big, stupid purple bucket hat. They're going to fight this week, and they're going to fight for Orange Cassidy's All-Atlantic Championship on Dynamite. So Orange Cassidy is your champ, defending against Jake Hager. John, how do you see this one working out?
Too soon for Orange to lose his belt. Jake Hager should win, but he won't.
Exactly. I'm digging the Jake Hager and the purple hat thing, just because like he usually, even when he's on camera, says absolutely nothing. But when he does pipe up about how much he loves his hat, it always manages to make me smile. Then we had also on 0 Hour was one of the matches in the Eliminator tournament. Let me back up a bit. On Dynamite, we had Ethan Page getting past Bandito. On Rampage, we had Ricky Starks and Lance Archer finally getting to their what was supposed to be first round match. The Page and Bandito match was a second round match. So that got us to 0 Hour, where Ricky Starks would take on Brian Cage in the other second round match. Now, the finals were supposed to be on Full Gear, but because whatever the hell happened with Starks and Archer postponed that, which led to Starks. I guess they didn't want, I mean, this was on 0 Hour, and this was like a 5-hour pay-per-view, so there's no reason why Starks couldn't have fought a second time later in the evening, but he didn't. But in the 0 Hour match, he did get past Brian Cage. And while I'll take him to task for beating 6'10" Lance Archer with a spear, which is completely unbelievable, and someone should tap him on the shoulder and say, buddy, you need a better finisher. You're a talent, but I don't believe you speared that big guy and beat him with it. What I will give him credit for is he got Brian Cage up for the Rochambeau, which I never thought would happen. Put him on his shoulder, flipped him back down, into a front slam. Ricky Starks is moving on. Ethan Page had been at the announce desk. He got up, came halfway down the ranch to say, I'll see you on Dynamite, because we're finally going to get to that Eliminator final. It's taking place tomorrow night on Dynamite. It's Ethan Page. It's Ricky Starks. The winner will get at the title at Winter is Coming. John Smith, how do you see this one working out between Page and Starks?
I feel like Ethan Page is going to end up being the one to win this one. I like the trajectory of Starks' push. I just don't think it lines up with what the current situation of the world title is.
I 100% agree. I kind of had Ethan Page early in this one for other reasons that we'll get to when we talk about the world title. But yes, I would have to agree with you. I think Page takes this one. Okay. Also on the 0 Hour, we had Eddie Kingston beating one of his heroes, Jun Akiyama. It was kind of a 50-50 buyback from the fact that on Rampage, Akiyama and Takeshita beat Eddie Kingston and Ortiz. Nothing much more to be said about that one. Jungle Boy wound up winning the steel cage match against Luchasaurus. When Christian Cage stole the keys and unlocked the cage door, both men came outside. Apparently that doesn't win a cage match in AEW because they only go in outside to get some tables and bring them back inside. Jungle Boy would hit a big elbow drop from the top of, and this was not a 10-foot cage. This was legitimately a 15-foot cage. He jumped from way up there in the lights, came down on Luchasaurus, followed it up with a snare trap, got the submission victory. I don't think Christian Cage is ready to come back now, so hopefully Jungle Jack moves on from this whole thing until Christian Cage is healthy and they can eventually have their blood feud. I forgot to download a picture that was going to make you laugh. We had Death Triangle taking on the Elite. This was the Elite showing up for the first time since the whole debacle that had them suspended. This was for the Trios Championships. The AEW fans, upon the arrival of the Elite, started chanting FCM Punk. And while I don't necessarily think that they had no right to say that, these are the same fans that were teary-eyed at his return. So the picture that I forgot to download was of Bryan Danielson screaming, "Fickle!"
Fickle!
Because that's all I could think about as I listened to these idiots chant FCM Punk when they would pop at 80 decibels if Cult of Personality played tomorrow night on Dynamite.
They are the types of people that pop when they heard it at the bar. They would sing it and be like, "This is a CM Punk song." These are guys that for 10 years, 7 years, or however long have been chanting CM Punk at WWE shows.
Yep.
because they love him so much, and they were chanting his name, as loud as anybody could hear.
Yeah.
Until this, it's just I believe it. it's just like I never thought that I would see it. You know,
Yeah, exactly. Well, they went on to have, as you absolutely would have guessed, an absolutely insane and excellent match. It went almost 19 minutes. Pac still hanging on to that timekeeper's hammer. He tried to pass it to Phoenix once, and he tossed it aside. He passed it to Phoenix the second time. Phoenix luckily held on to it because he went up for a one-winged angel. He nailed Omega in the head, and a victory roll for the cha-ching roll-up win for the Death Triangle. Now, it was a fantastic match, but the Elite had a bitch here. There was cheating. How do they solve it? They decided that now they're not just going to get a rematch. They're not going to get a 2 out of 3 falls match like we used to get. Before we were born, we didn't get. Before we were born, that's how all the world titles were settled. They're not even going to do a best of 5 series. They're doing a best of 7 between these two teams. Probably too much. But if they manage to not wrestle 7 carbon copies, probably going to be 7 incredible matches. That was obviously number 1, was at the pay-per-view. Number 2 is coming this week on Dynamite, and they've already told us exactly when. They're already booked out to January 11th in Los Angeles, which is only about 40 miles away from the Bucks' hometown of Rancho Cucamonga, if you're looking for spoilers as to how this one works out. But anyway, this week on Dynamite will be match number 2 of the best of 7 series between Death Triangle and the Elite. John Smith, how do you think this one works out?
You would think that they would just have it go even 1-1, but I'm going to go with the Death Triangle taking a 2-0 lead in this series.
Yeah, I like the way you're thinking. Yeah, I think this one, like in my head, it kind of goes like a hockey series, like 2-2, 1-1-1. Give them they cheated once. Give them a clean, a moderately clean, maybe a little, and I'm not saying use the hammer again, but maybe a distraction to get a victory here. But I agree with you. I think Death Triangle will take an early commanding lead so our heroes, the Elite, can come back from 0-2. Christ. Anyway, moving along. Speaking of stolen titles, Jade Cargill, who was dressed as Chitara from the Thundercats and broke a staff over her knee before she even came down the ramp. She took out Nyla Rose and finally got her TBS championship back. She moves on to 42-0. Saraya beat Britt Baker in a pretty good match. They went 13 minutes here. Saraya sold, of course, had to sell a neck injury, but they didn't do anything too insane, minus one spot to the floor where they hit like a draping, twisting neck breaker off of the apron onto the floor, but she landed very nicely across her shoulder. So, nobody had to hold their breath here. She got her victory. She was teary-eyed. It was great to see her back, and thank God she came out of it in one piece. Then we move on to our first title change of the evening. The TNT Championship match between Wardlow, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Samoa Joe. I got to admit, I did not see this one coming. If they were going to take it off of him in any way, I would have said maybe Powerhouse Hobbs, gets I can't say cheap victory because he's a big dude, and he probably would have hit a hell of a move to get it done. But what happened here was Wardlow hit his Powerbomb Symphony, 4 consecutive power bombs on Powerhouse Hobbs, which that was a lot. He was getting up in the air there. And son of a bitch, I did this on the last one. How about I put the right pay-per-view up in the corner? There we go. But in the end, after Hobbs took 4 power bombs, Samoa Joe clobbered Wardlow with the TNT belt and jumped on Hobbs into the coquina clutch and got the submission. Samoa Joe is now a champ. I don't know what to make of this one.
I love it because I love Samoa Joe.
Yeah.
I think it was a shame that he left that he was let go by WWE. It's like if things had just happened 6 months sooner, like how the freaking world would be. Adam Cole would probably be, still wrestling and not perpetually injured.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I love Samoa Joe, but this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, are you going to be like putting the company on Samoa Joe's back? Is he going to now move forward? No, that's not what's going to happen. You're just like, you're padding his stats on the back of his baseball card for, because you can, because you're Tony Khan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't quite understand this one. I thought if anything, if you're going to put it on Hobbs and make a new star, that would make some sense, but I didn't get this one. And obviously Joe could then turn around and lose one of, the Ring of Honor belt at the upcoming pay-per-view there, but this one just didn't make sense. Moving along, Darby Allin and Sting fought Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett, but because it's Darby Allin and Sting won. Not much to say about that. And here is where I will give AEW some credit. They do tend to listen to their fans. Like you would think when you create an interim title, what the hell's her name? Rosa. Thunder Rosa is injured. So they put the interim title on Tony. You would think you would keep that interim champ until Rosa came back. As long as it wasn't going to be, she wasn't going to be off for a year, you'd want to, put the belts back together that way. But the crowd was really, really in the corner of Jamie Hayter for the last month or so. They've really been enjoying the build up to her. And they did what kind of needed to be done. Jamie Hayter beat Toni Storm. She is your new, still interim AEW Women's Champion. It was done with some tomfoolery. There was an exposed turnbuckle. Britt got involved a whole bunch, but it didn't come off feeling like a heel victory because the fans were just so behind Jamie Hayter. Okay, Jesus, again, why are we going so long? Because I don't shut up. On Dynamite, the Acclaim debuted their new music video. Not noteworthy unless you're a big fan of Captain Insano, who showed up in this video. Swerve would go on to beat Anthony Bowens one-on-one, and if you had any doubt how this was going to work out at the pay-per-view, the Acclaimed went on to beat Swerve in Our Glory. The most noteworthy thing was Swerve wanted Keith Lee to use either a pair of tin snips or a pair of pliers to cheat in the match. 300-plus pound Lee doesn't need them. He tossed them away. Swerve slapped him. He bounced. Left Swerve alone. He took not the mic drop, but some wacky cover. The Acclaimed retain. Okay, we go to the main event. Again, jumping around, but in the main event, Moxley and MJF. This one started off with Mox running across the ring and slapping it looked like he was going to throw a big running haymaker. Instead, he slapped the taste out of MJF's mouth just to kind of give you an idea of where this match was going. And then we were in New Jersey, so MJF was kind of getting that Long Island thing where suddenly he's a good guy, even though we all know he's an a-hole. Well, Jon Moxley wanted to cement things, so he flipped off the entire arena. The arena followed back with an F you, Moxley, and now we all know what page we're on. So we go through this match. MJF is kind of the face in it. They're back and forth. It was a good match. It went 23-plus minutes. At one point, the ref takes a bump. MJF goes in his trunks. He pulls out the Dynamite Diamond. Regal comes out. He's berating him from ringside. Don't you dare. Don't you do it. Blah, blah, blah. MJF tosses the ring to William Regal and flips off William Regal. A second ref comes down. A second ref takes a bump. Regal says to Moxley, go away. Moxley at one point has the Bulldog choke on, and MJF is tapping. But there's two unconscious referees. There's no one there to call it. Regal says to Mox, go wake up the first ref. Mox goes to wake up the first ref. And William Regal hands the ring back to MJF, who lands the haymaker and the 1, 2, 3, and you have a new AEW World Champion.
So does that mean we have no more Blackpool Combat Club? Like, what's going on with that?
Exactly. Are they going to kick Mox out? I can't see that happening with Claudio and Danielson there. So are they going to kick Regal out? Is Regal not going to even talk to them? Who the hell knows? But Wednesday night's going to be interesting. It's going to be must-see TV, so you got to admit that. One match that I left out because it does involve something that's going to happen this week. Jericho, Guevara, Castagnoli, Bryan Danielson, a four-way for the Ring of Honor Championship. It went 21 minutes. It had all the spots you would assume. You even had the moment where Jericho was saved by Sammy, and then just when you thought they were going to hug it out, Sammy tried to take advantage and beat Jericho. It didn't happen. Double Judas effect to Claudio. Jericho gets the win. Afterwards, he's talking to Shivani. He says he expected Sammy to try and win. That's the competitiveness in him that's going to make him a future world champion. Orange Cassidy walks into the shot for some god unknown reason and says his friend Tomohiro Ishii, who you may remember as the Stone Pitbull, the man who looks like he's made out of granite, he wants Jericho, and he wants him for that title. Well, they're going to do it this week. Chris Jericho, Tomohiro Ishii for the Ring of Honor title this Wednesday on Dynamite. How you see it working out, sir?
See, this would be a fun little swerve, but I don't think they're going to do it. I got Jericho winning.
Yeah, I have to agree. Jericho retains, and I think I said it last week. If you're going to do if they didn't book a Ring of Honor pay-per-view for the middle of December or for the 10th of December, I should say, they might have done the title change there at the pay-per-view. But if you've got the Ring of Honor pay-per-view coming up, let Ring of Honor get its glory day of getting rid of this a-hole champ at their pay-per-view. All right. That is going to do it for us. So let's get into some bookkeeping here. Let's turn this on.
A little ball roll-up action.
Yes, sir. Let me get to find the right graphic. Here are the roll-ups from this week.
Wow, Ty is really getting up there.
Yeah, right? Ty, she's going to break onto that leaderboard soon. Here are the roll-ups overall. AEW still with a 5 roll-up lead. But look at those little bastards in Impact. They're catching up to Raw. And that's a 2-hour show compared to a 3-hour show. I don't know how Al's going to do the math at the end of the year, but that's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, John, you want to take it away? Let me find the right graphic to kick you off with. Here we go.
All right, the primetime rundown is back on its usual day and time as Joey Jarzanka, Ian Schreier, and Mike Zabo return to Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time with everything you need to know in the sports world. Do you have an interest in becoming a sports reporter? Would you want to be asking high-profile coaches and players questions in person? Are you a college student looking to break into the sports media industry and looking to write about your favorite team? The Eastern Observer is looking for interested candidates to join the family for college credit. Look no further, aspiring writers, social media specialists, content creators, etc. can inquire by emailing eosports3@gmail.com. We're looking forward to having you join the Eastern Observer family. The Black Cats NYC are the official band of the Eastern Observer. Check out their latest album, Free Cake, on any of these music providers: YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Deezer, anywhere you get your music. You can get the Black Cats NYC's album, Free Cake, out now. Play loud. As always, the EWP is sponsored by Pro Wrestling Pick'em, the internet leader in sports entertainment pick'em pools. Join us in the EWP public pool to play against us, or create a private pool with you and your friends. PWP.com. Play against your friends. Play against the universe. Join us back. Oh, yeah, guys. She'll like it, too. Ding! Join us back here next week for episode number, what? I don't even know. I'm sorry. 128.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Join us back here next week for episode 128 at 5 p.m. on all our viewing options. And while you're here, While you're here now, here is spelled wrong on this read, Alfred. And while you're here now watching and listening, please make sure you like this episode and subscribe to the Eastern Observer to make sure you get updates on all our shows and news articles. It's all about the algorithm, people.
Yes, indeed. Let's take a look at how we did. We all did pretty well, except for, Tyler, who doesn't bother. But the math is a little wrong on this one. I think we picked up one game, but we're still not doing all that tremendously overall.
Man, Tyler in his dead weight, man.
Yep.
How do you end up on our team? He's not even on the show anymore.
Exactly. Oh, God, Al is going to kill me. I didn't use any of the Survivor Series graphics. I forgot they were there.
Oh, no!
And I didn't go over the scoring because I'm an idiot. Well, after last week, Brian Roy is still ahead of AEW. Brian Roy is still ahead of Impact. Brian Roy is still ahead overall.
Jesus.
Going into this week in the WWE, Brian Roy is, again, at least catchable, but still leading. And the scoring, there is no Universal title match, so 15 points for Ronda's match, 20 points and 15 points also for the U.S. title, 20 points for the War Games matches, and if you go Hennig, you get 25. What we need pretty much is for Brian Roy to forget to make his picks. That's pretty much going to do it for us. Thank you, John, for taking some of those reads off of my docket. Thank you for helping me muddle on through.
Yeah, sorry I wasn't able to watch any of the AEW pay-per-view. I was working that night and I didn't have time to catch up on it.
Yeah, it happens. Life gets in the way. Hey, that's why we're down our fearless leader here, because life gets in the way sometimes.
Yep.
All right. Alexa Bliss, we love you. Larry Steve, always in our hearts. That's going to do it for us. So let's just say thanks for joining us. And as always, we wish you the best in all your future endeavors.
Peace.